Hello, and welcome to the Kids Teaching Kids podcast. In this podcast, we have high schoolers come on and answer questions that middle schoolers have about high school. Whether it be band, choir, orchestra, or just general high school life, we're going to cover it all, so make sure to stay tuned if you want to learn something new. I'm your host, Neel Gulati, and today we're going to be talking about clubs. I am also joined by Aashi Shah, a rising junior at Frisco High School. As the founder and president of the Master Club, state qualifier for BPA, officer for the Computer Science Club, theatric, NHS and Model UN member, she thrives in exploring diverse interests and making a positive impact within her school community. So we've collected a group of questions that middle schoolers had about high school, specifically clubs, and collected the most popular ones to answer for you today. So we're going to start a little simple just to ease it in. What are some of the most popular clubs and extracurriculars at your school?
My school is... We lost a lot of clubs during COVID and all of that, and a lot of seniors who are taking the clubs with them. But we still have NHS, DECA, BPA, and a few others like computer science and choir and theater and smaller ones like the a cappella group.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of clubs, I feel. Some of the most popular ones she named. There's also HOSA, which I know is pretty popular. I think that's some sort of health club. So they have a few. You can definitely check out what your school has specifically. That's just at our school. But I think it will vary a little bit from school to school and district to district. So how did you decide which clubs to join, and what factors should I consider when deciding what clubs to join?
The best thing to do is just to know what you're interested in, especially in your future career. So just do the things that will align with that, and also things you just want to learn. Yeah, if you want to learn new things, it's always the best time to learn them at clubs.
I agree, especially since clubs don't have any GPA sort of concern. Clubs aren't graded or anything. It's more just for your interest, so your GPA won't suffer, especially if the class that you might want to take is an on-level class. So that way it's sort of a risk-free area to explore your interest, and there's also no limit to how many clubs you can join versus you only get 4 electives, so you're sort of limited to how many classes you can do that you're interested in. So clubs, basically, whatever you're interested in, and also you'll have to look at how much time commitment each one has, because some of them meet once a month, and some of them meet, like twice a week. So there's different time commitments for each one. So you'll just have to check with the sponsor or the president or some officer in that club to figure out how long you're going to need to commit to it each week. So how do you balance your school work and extracurricular activities effectively?
I know for a fact the hardest thing is making sure you got your time management and priorities down, especially if it's between tests and maybe a competition. I know for Model UN, I had a conference the weekend before I had, I think it was like a unit test, and I still went just because it was really important, and I got an award for that, but I do know that it did affect how I studied, so always make sure you got your priorities straight and have good time management.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should always prioritize your classes over your clubs, and the reason for that is because if you're failing your classes, you can't do your clubs. You're not allowed to, right? So obviously your schoolwork has to come first, but then also, having good time management, trying to knock out some of your schoolwork in school if you have extra time can be really helpful, because that way you have more time outside of school for clubs, and that way you don't waste your time in school and then you have to do all of your homework after school. So making sure to use your time wisely and doing homework effectively rather than sitting around pretending to do it can be good. That way you have more time to fit in as many clubs as you'd like. So what are some of the benefits of joining clubs and being involved in extracurriculars in high school?
You can definitely learn a lot more from extracurriculars in high school because, to be honest, I think we have a lot of resources here with all the teachers who know so many things. My master club, we do a new thing every week with a new skill, and we bring on teachers from around the school who know different things. So just having that kind of experienced people just helping you teach, that's something special about high school clubs and extracurriculars.
Yeah, I think a big difference between middle school and high school clubs is the scale of them. Like Ashi's saying, some clubs you have teachers and professionals in the real world coming and talking to you guys and teaching you different things, which I don't think they have that in middle school clubs. So you get to learn a lot more than you did in middle school clubs. And and also, it's really a good place to meet like minded people who care about the same things. Because in classes, you're sort of just stuck there because you're required to be there and you might not have things in common. But the clubs, if you're joining the clubs you're passionate about, you're probably going to meet some friends who care about the same things, whether it be HOSA and you're learning about health related things, then you're going to meet people with similar interests and you're more likely to click with them. So, I mean, are there any clubs and activities that focus on community service or volunteering?
There's actually a bunch of those everywhere because everyone around the school, they always want to help around and get volunteer hours. NHS is the most committed one, I feel, because they make sure you get 20 hours, but then there's all these nonprofit organizations that just help in specific things, like Letters of Gold. That was a club I tried to join this year. They were trying to write letters to all kinds of people, from hospitals to just senior homes.
Yeah, so I think obviously the most known one is NJHS, like Ashi said. That's basically just NJHS for high school. It's relatively the same thing with possibly a little bigger commitment. And then I think Letters of Gold. I don't know what other clubs are there, but you'll have to check with your school specifically as to what clubs are there, because I know Letters of Gold isn't in every school. I'm pretty sure NHS is in every school, but other clubs specifically, you have to check for your school and your district. So, how do I join a club? And if there's nothing I'm interested in, can I start my own? And what does the process look like for that?
There's probably like 20 different clubs on your campus. The best thing to do is just to reach out to different people. Always join the introductory meetings and go to orientations. I do know for the orientations for high school, there's a whole like a rally for all the different clubs, and make sure you go around, pick up flyers and see what you're interested in. And always, if none of them align to your interests, then you could just make your own club. And to do that, all you really need to do is find a person, like a teacher, who would be willing to help you out, and make sure you know what you want to do. Go into your club knowing exactly what you want to come out of it and who you're aiming to help, whether it is the students to learn something or your club is meant to help other people. And I would also make sure you have a time slot, because it could be during the day for some schools, or you can do before and after school, whichever has the most turnout. Make sure you have all the details before you actually go forward with having it a thing.
One common misconception that people have is that if you want to make your own club at your school, then it has to be something unique that's never done before, which is actually not true at all. So this past year, a friend of mine actually founded the Letters of Gold Club at our school. But this isn't a new club. It's been around in multiple schools. It just wasn't there at our school because there was no interest at the time. So she saw just a missing opportunity and decided to fill that. And so she got to essentially run the whole operations at our school, but it wasn't some sort of unique idea. So don't think that you have to come up with a new groundbreaking idea for a new club that no one's ever heard of. You can use other clubs that already exist as long as they don't occur at your school.
That's very true. It never matters like if someone else is doing the same thing. It always matters what you're planning to do with the stuff you have. Even if it's an idea that's been out there, it's just a matter of, will you take it to the next level?
Absolutely. So, are there any club competitions or events that happen throughout the year?
Yeah, of course. I'll just list them off for you. Model UN, it's United Nations, but essentially for high schoolers. There's a bunch of conferences. I do know it's like it's kind of everywhere. You can join with the YMCA, or you can join with other schools. I joined with another school and went on a 4-hour drive to Rice University. But yeah, that was tons of fun. I do know there's lots of state competitions for the more nationwide clubs, like HOSA, like Neel was saying, and BPA, Business Professionals of America, DECA, and the Student Council. I do know they have a conference that's a weekend every year. But you just have to keep an eye out for all those opportunities and go all for it. When you want to sign up, make sure you are prepared for everything that comes with it.
Yeah, so I know not all of the clubs have competitions, but some have super extreme competitions, like Aashi said. I think the main thing to look for of whether that club's going to have competitions is how big is the scale of the club. So clubs like HOSA and DECA, these are nationwide clubs that essentially every single school in the country has. But if you have a smaller club that's not in every school, like Letters of Gold, then it's probably not going to have a competition. And also just look at the nature of the club. You have clubs like DECA and ACDEC, which have just a more competitive nature because that's what they're based around. But then clubs like the Master Club, which Aashi founded, that's more just a fun place to learn new things. So just look at the nature of the club and what they're trying to do, and then you'll be able to tell whether they're going to have competitions or not.
And if a club has competitions, don't let that scare you away. Lots of clubs are always so fun just to learn about the different aspects. BPA, it has finance parts of it, or business, or even coding parts. There is a big competition the whole thing is for, but don't let that stop you. And even the clubs that don't have competitions, they're always great learning opportunities, even if it doesn't mean you get to compete.
I did forget to mention that. I don't think, even if the club is competitive in nature, I don't think you have to compete necessarily. Some of them you have to qualify for to compete in just at your school, and some of them you don't. You can just talk to the teacher and be like, look, I'm just here to learn, I'm not here to compete. And then that you can still be there and not be in the competitions, and you'll be okay. So what kind of commitment is required for most clubs in high school?
It all depends on whichever club you are in. As with what we said about the competitions, if you're part of academic decathlon, you're going to have to put many, many hours into just reading the books and all the material to do the tests for it. And if you're doing something like a computer science club, then you would only have to go for the 1-hour meetings once a week. It all depends on what your schedule is, and the clubs are meant to cater to whatever you need. So if it doesn't work with you, then you just simply don't have to go spend the time there. You just have to do what you want.
Yeah, so the thing about clubs is, like I said earlier, there's no commitment in the sense you don't have to worry about your GPA dropping or anything like that. So it's really up to you as to how much you want to do in a club. But if you do go all out in every club, it really depends on the club. Again, I feel like most of your average clubs are going to be meeting once a week and just sort of, learning something, having conversations within that, and then that's pretty much it. And then some of the more intense ones might meet more than once a week, or they might have homework outside. Like ACTIC, you have to study for like all the time. And then you have competitions and you have to go places and you have to do this, that. So those are obviously a lot more. So, but then you have clubs that might not even meet once a week. Some of them might just meet once a month. And, like I think Indian Student Association at our school meets like once a month. And we sort of just discuss anything that happened in the past month related to, our culture. And so it's not a super heavy club, and it's just more of a fun place to be. To connect with like-minded people. Are there any clubs that collaborate with other schools or organizations in the community?
Yeah, of course. As with competitions, you obviously compete with other schools, and that would mean you would compete with people in your own district. So it's a great way to connect. I did meet a lot of people through just BPA or Model UN, and then I can ask my other friends from those places, do you know this person? So yeah, it's a great way to meet people from all around the district, and it really is a small world. You'll find a lot of people again and again. It's a great feeling just to have so many people just within reach.
Yeah, also, it depends, especially if you're an officer or a founder of a club. you can really decide how much you collaborate with other schools. Like, let's just take Letters of Gold, for example. If you take a club like that, generally it's going to be solo, but you can talk to the president of the other schools' clubs, right? And you can say, hey, we're thinking of doing this big project, and we're thinking we want to write like 1,000 letters to people at this old age home. So just you have to take charge. And even if you're not an officer, you can talk to the president and be like, hey, I had this idea. What if we tried this? That way it's like you're taking initiative and doing the things that you want to do. And I think that's the coolest part about clubs is there's no rule book or thing that you're supposed to do. Like in your classes, there's a curriculum and that's what you're supposed to follow. In clubs, it's sort of just how much do you want to apply yourself, and according to that, that's how much you're going to get done, how much of a good experience you're going to have. So a lot of people were concerned about their college applications. So do clubs and extracurriculars help with college applications and building a strong resume?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said earlier, if you do clubs that help with your future career or portray that, like if I wanted to go into engineering or something like that, and since I'm in computer science club, it would definitely show that I'm committed to the field of study. And it also helps with just you learning about what your future is going to be in small ways. So college is really like that you have this passion for what you're learning.
Absolutely. I think it's a good way to show that you're actually interested in learning and not just doing something for the sake of it. Also, doing things specific to your career. So, let's just say, take me for example. I was interested in film for a super long time, and I was going to apply to college for film. And there was no film club at my school, and there were really no film classes. And I was like, this is probably a club is going to be the best way I can apply myself and allow other people who are interested in the same thing to apply themselves. So I've started a film club at our school and then worked with that. So that sort of shows colleges like, look, okay, Neil's actually interested in film and he doesn't just pretend to, so that when he's applying to school, but he genuinely cares and is genuinely passionate and is more likely to do something than someone who's not as passionate. So, do clubs and extracurriculars have regular meetings, and how can I keep track of their schedules?
Most clubs and meetings, if they know what they're doing, they will have a messaging platform, whether it be Remind or GroupMe. Keep an eye out for all of those things. They will help you make sure that you're meeting the club at least as many times as they need to. My club, we meet every week except for some holidays. So it's pretty consistent, so all the members already know what day they should come in. But if it's a little bit more random, whether it be like either mornings or afternoons, you're really going to need to keep an eye out and keep your ears open for all the news about that, especially on flyers, where they'll keep the times posted.
Yeah, I think depending on how many clubs you want to join, generally the clubs try and look at the other clubs and try not to conflict with their schedules, especially if they're two clubs that a lot of people are both a part of. So let's just say, ACDEC and HOSA. I feel like those two clubs, some people who are interested in ACDEC are generally also interested in HOSA. So they'll try not to have conflicting dates. But like Aashi said, most of them meet on the same day. And so you can just put that meeting in your calendar, and then they'll probably communicate with you through Remind or GroupMe. And then so if it changes, just switch it up on your calendar. That way you just know. You can set it every week. Okay, every Thursday after school, I have a HOSA meeting, and then every Friday before school, I have an ACDEC meeting. That way, you get a reminder every single week from your phone saying, okay, you got to go to this club today. Someone says, should I bother joining any clubs?
Yes, you should definitely join clubs. It's something about them that just makes school a lot more exciting. Like if I didn't have a club meeting on a school day, like after school, I probably just wouldn't go to school. It's just something to look forward to, and it definitely would boost your mood because it's just your mind going free as to what you're interested in. So yes, join clubs. You will get a lot out of it, but make sure you're joining the right ones.
Yeah, just pick the clubs you actually care to be a part of. Don't just join clubs because it might look good on your college resume. Because colleges can see if you join 10 clubs and you did absolutely nothing for them and you're kind of just there, that doesn't really add any weight. But actually doing something meaningful, if you really care about ACTEC and you go to these competitions and you try your very best and you collect awards for it, then they can see that. So, and it's also, you can meet a lot of cool people through clubs. Like I said, that's where people who have the same interests are going to be. So really it's the best place to meet people compared to your classes, but extracurriculars like band, choir, orchestra, basketball, football, whatever, that's where people have the same interests and passions, and that's where you're going to click most with people. So how can I find out more about the clubs and activities available at my future high school?
Usually, your high schools will have a freshman orientation. Ours is called Raccoon Rally, where clubs are invited to just set up a table and just talk all about the clubs. And make sure you go to every single table, whether the title sounds fun or not. Just go, make sure you know what it's about before you say no to it. But always be open to all of it.
Yeah, you never know what might stick or interest you. If there's a video game club and it had a stupid name, but you didn't know because you didn't go up to the table, then you might be sad about that. Also, I think there's a bunch of flyers usually around the school that people just post of their club. So it'll be like, join this club, meetings this day, and it'll just be up all year, and it'll give you a little bit about the club. So you can just go then, join the remind. I'm sure it'll have a QR code, and then you can just see when are they meeting. Let me go try a meeting. What's the worst that could happen? You lose like 30 minutes of your time. Really not a big deal. But yeah, definitely give everything a try. Can you give me tips on how to manage my time effectively while being involved in multiple activities?
Make sure you allocate your time. This is hard, but if you know that one club, say theater, it takes up every single day of every single week, then you know that maybe if you want to do another club that's once a month, then you should take time out of theater to go to that club. Just know where you want to spend your time and make sure you give a little time to everything, knowing how if you spend too much time here, then you'll lose time over there. It all depends on what you know and what you feel is best.
Correct. Also, make sure you have an effective study / homework method, I guess. A lot of people sort of just go and sit in their room and do their homework and hope it gets done on time, which is not what you want to do, because if that's what you're doing, your homework is going to take all day, every day, and you won't have time for clubs. Also, I would say, generally your clubs are going to be after school or before school, so I would almost treat it like an extended school day. If you have a 30-minute club meeting after school and your school ends at 4:30, just treat it like school ends at 5. Plan everything 30 minutes later, and that way, it's postponed, and it's not like, oh, because of the club, I didn't get my homework done. No, it's probably just because you weren't using your time effectively. Also, using your time effectively in school during free time is super big. A lot of classes in high school, you'll have some free time towards the end once the lesson's over because they can't let you leave, but they'll just say you can work on homework now, and then do your homework in that time, even if you're tired. That way you have time after school or before school to do clubs and other things that are more interesting to you than just doing math homework. So we have one final question here, and that's, how can I get involved in leadership positions within clubs or student organizations?
Okay, so this is a big one. The leadership positions are where you can get the most of the club, but you can never really get there unless first you have enough experience in the topics in the club, and second, if you've shown enough initiative to all the chaperones or whoever was leading the club the year before. So the experience, you can only have that if you've been there for lots of years. But if you're just joining the club and you want to get into a leadership position the next year, show lots of initiative. As a founder and president of the Master Club, I found that people who show initiative are willing to help me and to move stuff when I need them to. They're always the one I'm going to look to help me out with making presentations and choosing or helping out reach out with people. So show lots of initiative, help out where you can, and don't be like the goody two shoes who just always helps just the person in charge of the club. Help out everywhere. Wherever you see someone is not there, just be there and help out.
Absolutely. Also showing interest from the beginning, taking initiative. You can't just once applications for the leadership positions come out for the club, all of a sudden start being helpful. You have to be helpful all the time. No one, because especially like Ashi's saying, only helping the president of the club, that's really annoying. So definitely don't do that. And people can see it. People can see when you're being disingenuous and just doing something because you want to get something out of it. So just be there to help. Be interested. Like, genuinely be interested in the club. I don't see why you would do a club if you're not interested in it. So definitely take the time to pick the right club that you want to be a part of, and don't overload yourself, because then you won't have time to do anything meaningful. Like I was saying earlier, pick a few clubs, maybe 3 or 4 max, maybe 5, and then that way you can still do positions of leadership and be helpful and get these cool experiences without overworking yourself and getting burnt out. Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave off. Thank you so much for being here, Aashi.
Thank you so much. This was lots of fun.
All right, that's all we have today for the Kids Teaching Kids podcast. If you did learn something new, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. And tune in next Thursday for our next episode if you do want to learn something more. That's all I have today for the Kids Teaching Kids podcast. Thank you for being here and have a wonderful day.